Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our second speaker, George Fouron. George is a SUNY Distinguished Teaching Professor in the Department of Africana Studies in the College of Arts and Sciences. He's been on the faculty at Stony Brook since 1985. As a teacher, he speaks powerfully to the complexities of racial politics, calling attention to Haitian diaspora and issues of transnationalism. His talk today is called Citizenship in the Age of Globalization, Glocalization, Transnational Migration, and Multiculturalism. He'll talk for about 25 minutes, and then we'll have an opportunity for some questions. But now again, I have an opportunity to introduce one of our other amazing faculty. So today we have Tracy Walters. She is a professor and former chair of Africana Studies. Whenever I want to know the truth about something, I call Dr. Patrice Ganang, and he will always tell me the truth about things. And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about Tracy, and he just talks so passionately about the type of leader she is in the work she does on diaspora studies among African-American and African women, the way in which she pushes boundaries, the way in which her work is rigorous but also accessible. It was just very exciting to hear him talk about her work. And I will say I had the pleasure to attend one of her classes focused on democracy and truth. But when I walked into that class, you can feel when a class has been treated in a way where honesty is the only right answer, where asking hard questions, where authenticity is absolutely essential. And I could feel it in the presentations the students made. I could feel it in the questions that they asked. And it was just such an honor to be in a class with someone who is this amazing researcher, but also truly a master and teacher and instructor. And so with that, I will bring up Tracy Walters, and she will move us along.
Good evening. Good evening. Okay, a few words about our dear George. Okay, so as has already been stated, I'll just do the bio. George Eugene Fouron, a native of Haiti, is Professor of Education and Social Sciences here at Stony Brook University. He graduated from the University of Haiti in International Affairs in 1969, obtained a diploma in International Relations from the University of the West Indies, Trinidad, which I did not know until right this moment, and holds an EDD from Teachers College, Columbia University. I won't give the year. His research concentration in transnationalism and its effects as experienced by Haitians in Haiti and those of the Haitian diaspora, that's his concentration. He has published many peer-reviewed articles in scholarly journals such as the Journal of Caribbean Studies, Identities, Ethnic and Racial Studies, Comparative Urban and Community Research, the American Ethnologist, International Studies Review, and the International Studies Review, among many others. His latest books are as followed: the co-authored text with Nina Glick-Sheila, Georges Woke Up Laughing, Long Distance Nationalism and the Search for Home, which was published in 2001 by Duke University Press. Behind the Blackboard, Selections of the Foundations of Education, published in 2012 by Cornell University. Footsteps of Migration, Caribbean Immigrants, and the U.S. Racial Taxonomy, again with Cognella in 2014. And his latest manuscript is Roots and Roots, Living in Distant Proximity of Their Homeland as Outsiders Within. New York Haitian trans migrants articulate their transnational project for a new Haiti. That's what George has in terms of the bio that's provided. But I would like to take just 40 seconds to say that in terms of masterful teaching, in terms of someone who really pushes their students, who likes to titillate their students, makes quite a bit of trouble in class, I hear, quite often. George is a beloved person here at Stony Brook. I don't know how many in the audience know George, both by his colleagues and his students, and is highly respected. In addition to that, he's the first person to say yes to any service that's needed, both within the department and the university in general. So it's no surprise that George sits here, yes, to deliver a short lecture on his research, but to also be acknowledged with the distinguished professorship that he holds. And he's dear to my heart, and I'm so honored to be here to represent the department and to be here for you, George. And now, without further ado, we will have Professor Fouron.
Can you see me? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you to the Provost and the Provost Office for inviting me, and thank you, Tracy. I don't recognize me in the descriptions we offered to the audience. My presentation this afternoon is Citizenship in the Age of Globalization, Glocalization, Transnational Migration, and Multiculturalism. My research area is in transnational identity. I begin by saying that most historians and political scientists attribute to the 1648 Peace Treaty of Westphalia to the birth of the modern nation states. One among the most salient aspects of the treaty was the recognition by each nation state of the right to exclusive authority within the bounded territories. However, the treaty tacitly extended to the nation state the right to decide who could access the formal citizenship and who could not. As a result, through the years, many principles of inclusion and exclusion that are often more arbitrary than rational have affected the concept of citizenship. If we take the United States as an example, we find that citizens of any of the 50 states receive the benefits of full and complete rights to congressional representations, except for those who reside in the District of Columbia, whose delegates to the U.S. Congress is a non-voting member of the House of Representatives. Also, people born in Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Northern Mariana Islands, dependent territories of the United States, are American citizens at birth. However, like the residents of Washington, D.C., they have non-voting representation in the U.S. Congress. People born in Samoa, another dependent territory of the United States for 123 years now, are U.S. nationals. Although they carry a U.S. passport, they're not citizens of the United States. Native-born Samoans acquire U.S. citizenship through the naturalization process the same way resident aliens do. Those who are born on U.S. foreign bases of non-citizen American soldiers are neither U.S. citizens nor nationals, because the lands where the bases are located remain the sovereign territories of the host countries. Since the end of World War II, however, the globally accelerated increases in the exchange of goods, ideas, capital, services, cultural symbols, and the advent of the information age have transformed the configuration of the world, and by extension, the nature of the nation state and that of citizenship. According to Marshall McLuhan, the pioneer in the study of media theory, we now live in a global village because the advent of the information age has caused time to cease, space to vanish, causing the simultaneous happening of an equitable sharing of resources and knowledge through advanced technology and communication. From the same perspective, Thomas Friedman, the New York Times commentator, argues that globalization has created a flat world of unbounded opportunities for all. However, for many critics of the global village and the flat world, such as Luke and Tuat Heil, the world's political map has become a cartography of illusion. June Johnson opines in her 2007 book, Global Issue, Local Arguments, quote, "The idea of the world's culture drawn together in the global village raises questions about equal representation, reciprocal sharing, and rich diversity and mutual understanding. The advent of the glocal and substantive citizenship. Therefore, within the global village and the flat world, the concept of citizenship has been facing many challenges on many fronts, especially since the last decades. The linkages that interweave the global with the local have transformed further the nations and the legal status of the populations, resulting in the glocal. While state grants membership through laws that extend legal citizenship and nationality to some members of the populations, non-citizens may act as substantive or social citizens when they claim rights and assume privileges that are in principle accorded only to citizens. In Global Approach Makes Global Knowledge Local, Julia Taguenia, who considered the glocal from a social justice perspective, claims that the local integrates the global to promote the respect of human rights. Along this argument, the Mexican state's issuance of the matricular consular ID card through the consular representatives in many U.S. cities to both legal and unauthorized Mexican immigrants in the United States has enabled these card holders to pressure U.S. banks, motor vehicle bureaus, U.S. governments, and car insurance companies, among others, to be responsive to them as if they were U.S. citizens. Also, La Carte Citoyenne gives all people living in Paris access to all municipal services. The New York City ID, NYC ID, and the 400 city-strong European Charter for the Safeguarding of Human Rights in the city allow even the undocumented immigrants access to municipal services and extend to them some political, social, and economic rights. For example, in December 2021, the New York State City Council voted 33-14 to allow non-citizens who hold legal residence to participate in local elections for mayor, controller, public advocate, city council, borough presidents, and ballot initiatives as if they were citizens. In the same breath, the New York City undocumented immigrants receive the right to vote in school board elections if they have children enrolled in the system. These are examples of glocal citizenship. Robertson, who credits the evolution of the global system into the development of the glocal, describes the concept as the ways in which national social actors construct meanings, identities, institutional forms in multi-dimensional terms and perspectives within the sociological context of the nations by fusing the local with the global. Therefore, according to Linda Bosniak, in the contemporary global system, quote, exclusively nation-centered understandings of citizenship have become unduly parochial or narrow-minded. Citizenship is said to be increasingly denationalized, with new forms of citizenship that exceed the nation developing to replace the old. And what Wimmer and Glickschiller posit, quote, if we remove the blinders of methodological nationalism, we see that while the nation states are still extremely important, social life is not confined by nation-state boundaries any longer. Therefore, as Soysal, Jacobson, Sakia Sassen, and many other researchers see it, globalization and glocalization have reformulated the identity of the nation-state and the essence of citizenship. While these important transformations are occurring, the traditional conceptions of the nation-state and citizenship endure, however. There even exists a quality of national index, QNI, which ranks the various nationalities and citizenships according to their values and worth. Developed by Dr. Kutchener, a professor at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, in association with Henley and Partners, the global leader in citizenship by investment, the index rates nationalities and citizenships like the same way financial lending institutions rate the credit scores of their clients. Therefore, the same way a low credit score disqualifies a borrower from receiving a loan from a bank, a low national index makes it very unlikely that a middle and lower class intended immigrant from one of the global south countries would receive a visa to travel. At the same time, people who, by lack of fate, were born in the global north, regardless of their social status, can travel mostly everywhere they want to go without much difficulty because their citizenship has great value. Yet, another class of individuals, the very wealthy, participate in the Henley and Partners Golden Passport program when they invest $800,000 and up in the US economy or create jobs for a minimum of 10 people, known as the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program or the Residence and Citizenship by Investment Initiative. This program establishes a very quick way for wealthy investors to open US legal residency and US citizenship. According to US immigration laws, these investors, their spouses, and their children under 21 years of age obtain the right to live, work, and study without restriction in the country. While these wealthy individuals can purchase their citizenship, their American citizenship, Alex Tabarrok, a professor of economics at George Mason University, complains that, for strange reason, for many people, the right to move stops at the arbitrary boundaries we call national borders. Migration within the global village and multiculturalism. Since the late 1960s, because of the post-World War decolonization impetuses and other socio-political and financial initiatives generated by globalization, glocalization, and their concomitant impacts, the new migratory flows, known as migration from below, come from the global south to the global north. As a result, these migratory streams have produced a significant upsurge in racial and cultural diversity in these countries that frightens many of the denizens who accuse these newcomers of invading their national and cultural spaces. Spurred by the Great Replacement concept, many in the global north blame the non-native denizens for the dissatisfactions that affect their societies, whether they are financial, cultural, religious, linguistic, linguistics, or health-related. In addition, using cultural and identity politics, which have generated a fear of immigrants and the others, they accuse them of initiating rapid racial, social, and cultural changes, even decadence within those societies, expressing what Michael Kimmel, a former professor of masculinities at Stony Brook University, called sentiments of aggrieved entitlement. In such an atmosphere, as we experience the recurrent attacks on DEI, wokeism, and critical race theory, many politicians, intellectuals, and their followers reject cultural diversity and multiculturalism, which they interpret as the root causes of a looming Armageddon and the omen of an approaching apocalyptic future clash of cultures and civilizations among various sectors of the populations, as Samuel Huntington had expressed it. Furthermore, in his 2006 book, quote, State of Emergency, the Third World Invasion and Conquest of America, Patrick Buchanan, an author, political commentator, politician, advisor to 3 presidents, and former presidential candidate, went even further when he claimed that, quote, multiculturalism is a cancer eating away at the fabric of American society. Likening today's third world to, quote, the barbarians who overran and destroyed the Roman Empire, close quote, he wrote that, quote, immigrants from third world nations are corrupting American society, undermining our values, weakening our institutions, sapping our strength, and destroying our unity. Multicultural ideology be damned. That is what history teaches. By all accounts, he is not a good student of history. As a reaction to the intolerance vis-à-vis the increase of racial, sexual, cultural, and religious diversity in the global north, many immigrants have formulated new forms of citizenship. The first one is flexible citizenship. Formulated by Iwa Ong, flexible citizenship grants some individuals the right to seek out and use multiple citizenships to navigate transnational geographies for securing lifestyles and maximizing potential opportunities in the dynamic, interconnected world. The other new forms of citizenships are global citizenship or citizenship of the world, transnational and transborder citizenship, people who live in 2 or more states simultaneously, cosmopolitan citizenship, or people who are so empowered that they have the capacity to participate in global decision-making and governance around the world. Cultural citizenship, or the right to be different by maintaining one's cultural practices without compromising one's right to belong. And post-national citizenship, like the European Union citizenship, a form of citizenship that includes different identities but perceives each of them as homogeneous. These new tropes of citizenship have made salient the norms and discourses of global human rights within the global system, the vagaries of global human rights. Even though the world countries have pledged allegiance to the international human rights treaties, significant challenges remain in promoting global human rights effectively. Many countries continue to rely on the now outdated Westphalian notion of, quote, non-interference in the international affairs of state, quote, end quote, as an excuse to avoid addressing situations when governments are abusing and mistreating their own or the non-native populations. To actualize the concept of human rights as a supranational project, in July 2000, the African Union adopted a resolution that replaced the concept of non-interference in the international affairs of states of states with the concept of non-indifference. Subsequently, in 2005, the UN members adopted unanimously the concept of responsibility to protect, or R2, number 2P. According to these two resolutions, state sovereignty also entails the responsibility to protect people in general, not only the citizens and nationals. Implied in the non-indifference and the R2P concepts is the responsibility of the world's nations to intervene in the domestic affairs of states, to protect all individuals, regardless of their citizenships and wherever they live, when these populations face genocide, necropolitics, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity. They propose that, quote, human rights intervention by international organization or a coalition of states in specific nations' domestic affairs are not assault on their national sovereignty and authority when people experience systematic violations of their human rights, as it happened in Rwanda in 1994 and Srebrenica in 1995, when the world's nations failed to intervene, as close to 1 million Tutsis and 7,000 Muslim Bosniaks were being slaughtered respectively because of their ethnic identity and religion. Immigrant transnationalism. Because of the failures of refusal of many states to protect the rights of all persons, not citizens, who live within their territories and beyond, many immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers experience extreme difficulties in trying to fit into the host society's mainstream populations. And because most of social science theory continue to equate the identities of societies as confined within the boundaries of the nation states, the same way Oscar Handling expressed it in his concept of immigrants uprooting and transplanting, researchers often take exclusive rootedness and linear incorporation in the nation state as the norm, and social identities and practices enacted across state boundaries as out of the ordinary. Despite the perdurance of the traditional concepts of state sovereignty and citizenship, defiantly, however, many immigrants refuse to cut ties with their homelands and remain connected with their populations. They live transnational lives as transborder citizens. Schiller and Fouron proposed the term transborder citizens to reflect the political status of those who may or may not be citizens of both the sending and receiving polities, but who express some level of social citizenship in both simultaneously. Schiller and Fouron also claimed that these transborder citizens evolve in constructed universes that they call transnational social fields, and we saw social fields a few minutes ago. A set of multiple interlocking networks of social relationships through which ideas, practices, and resources are exchanged, organized, and transformed. These transnational social fields are multidimensional, and they encompass structures of social interactions that are not contiguous to national borders. They deterritorialize the nation state. They deterritorialize the nation state. Therefore, the lives of increasing numbers of individuals can no longer be understood by looking only at what goes on within the national boundaries of nation states, because these immigrants evolve within intangible and ethereal social spaces and imagine fluid communities that overarch and connect their homelands to their places of settlement. Within these social fields, they claim rights for distinct and separate populations and take political actions in multiple nations from the perspective of global human rights. As transborder citizens, they examine the realities in relationship to more than one state, galvanize the political activism in more than one society, and propose social initiatives and solutions that are transnational. Conclusion. Because of their actions and initiatives, the transnational immigrants present a challenge to the traditional concept of citizenship, cultural homogeneity, cultural hybridity, the melting pot concept, and the normative linear process of social integration. In addition, they contest and seek to renegotiate the power relations that undergird the host country's social and political realities. They also create new legal covenants among the various groups that inhabit the homelands and the place of settlement as they bring the transnationality in the discourse of citizenship, the narrative of rights, and the rights to have rights regardless of their immigration status. In this context, it is important for the host nations to seek to understand the migration phenomenon by exploring and understanding these immigrants' mindset and the strategies they use in their adaptive modalities. Failure to adopt policies that are more inclusive, tolerant of the vision of social integration may indeed increase the risk of creating different and unequal classes of citizens in these communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions in the audience for Dr. Fouron?
So I'm just a humble chemist, but sitting here listening to you speaking about flexible citizenship and protection of the rights of all people makes me feel like you're speaking about the Middle East. I'm wondering if you see a just and appropriate path for Israel and the West Bank and Gaza, given your examples of places where it has gone horribly wrong. Just asking for your thoughts.
Yeah, my thought is that it is deplorable what happened in Israel in June the 7th and what is going on right now in Gaza. I think that from the perspective of global human rights, I think people should sit at a table as responsible individuals and discuss the situation without emotions, without being pushed by any ideology, because both sides are suffering, and it is not acceptable. It cannot continue this way. It is a tragedy, and I think that Israel has a right to exist and to defend itself, but the Palestinians also have a right to exist, to have a nation state of their own. And until and unless we achieve this, then the issue will continue in the Middle East. Both sides will continue to suffer, and it is unacceptable. We should not continue this way, because there is no end to it. Armed forces are not the solution. War is not the solution. Cool-headed people should temper themselves, sit at a table, and address fundamental issues in that region. Learn to live together as human beings. We don't want a repetition of what we saw on June the 7th, nor do we want a repetition of what we are seeing in Gaza right now. It's heartbroken. Did I answer your question?
Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Roche. I really enjoyed this presentation. I think I have a thing about, citizenship has to do with whether you accept somebody or do not accept someone, right? Politically, institutionally, as well as interpersonally. So this does not, the inclusion and exclusion does not exist in the vacuum. I think it inhabits the details of everyday life and how we talk with one another. So you know where I come from, right? So with an interest, my whole work is about intercultural communication, multilingualism. Do you think a multilingual society, a society, all the things that put multilingualism at the center could provide some measure of solution to the problems that we witness today. That's the first part. And the second part is, I think technology also plays a big part. Right now, if you look at the communities of diaspora, not only that diasporic communities are different, having different lives, but simultaneously with the instantaneous sharing of lives across the globe, right? So there's a really fine distinction. I mean, the distinction between who's domestic, who's diasporic, that distinction is also being blended and blurred. So that, I think, also adds to the complexity that you speak of, right? You're talking about the local, the transnational, and the global, and how the local actually embodies the global. So I guess these are the two things. One is, could multilingualism do something, right? Because very often we recognize multiculturalism, but we still have a monolingual ethos, right? Even though our workforce, our community is multilingual, we say we welcome multiculturalism without recognizing multilingualism. So would multilingualism play a positive role? That's the first part. The second part is, given that technology is upsetting, all the kind of categories that we used to have, who's domestic, who's abroad, and where you are, we can simultaneously be everywhere. What are the implications of this technology for our reconceptualization of group membership? I think that's the question.
Okay, thank you for the two questions, very good questions. The number one question, multilingualism can bring people together. But one of the problems that we see, especially in the global north, the people who are multilingual, who want to maintain the multilingualism, are the immigrants, the newcomers into these communities. And I think that to bring people closer together, I think the populations of the host countries should also make an effort not only to accept multilingual individuals, but for them also to become multilingual. Because when one can speak in one's language, in one's native language, to another individual in his or her native language, that brings us closer together. So I advocate, look at a country like the United States. Look at our education system that exists in this country. When kids come to school speaking a foreign language, the goal of the schools is to eliminate that foreign language to make them monolingual speakers of English. We do not have many maintenance programs in America. Most of the programs are transitional programs. And they tell the kids you have to make a transition from your native language to the host language. And that deprives the individual of his or her essence, because language is at the core of who we are, what we are, right? So I think multilingualism should be coming from both sides of the equation. And if it comes only from one side, it's going to be maligned by the receiving sectors of the receiving society. And I think the second point is technology also can bring us together as well. Technology educates us. Technology gives us access to information that we could not have had 40, 50 years ago. I think the platforms that we use, if we put them to good use, the social platforms that we use, we can educate people about other individuals, what we call the others, to make them understand the mindset of these individuals, why they are in this country. They're not in this country to destroy America. They want to be part of this democracy. They want to celebrate this democracy. They want to be part of it. But at the same time, they demand that they despoil themselves of the culture, of the tradition of who they are, is unacceptable. All right? So technology can be useful in that sense to explain to sectors of the receiving nations what the dynamics, what the mindset of the migrants, of the immigrants are, to perceive them from different perspectives so that we can live together. We can share this space together, right? We're not coming to destroy America. What kind of a nonsense is this? And those are people who are advisors to presidents. I mean, Buchanan was the advisor to 3 presidents. And when you are spewing this kind of nonsense, it affects the political system. It affects the mindset of those who lead the nation. And of course, we have these policies that are counterproductive to bringing people together so we can live together as human beings.
Good evening, Professor Fouron. You talked about the concept of sovereign obligation. My question would be, how does the concept of sovereign obligation intersect with citizenship in the context of the traditional theories of decolonization in the global South in Africa and in other colonized places of the world?
Well, the problem is that, as I explain it, the African Union and the UN, they understand clearly that states cannot use the arguments that I am sovereign within my territories and I can treat my population the way I see fit. It is unacceptable, it is unexcusable in the 21st century. We should not tolerate that. We should understand that human rights around the globe is not attached to citizenship. As a matter of fact, if you read the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, it doesn't speak about citizens, it speaks about persons. So we look at the words of the 14th Amendment, it means to say that the laws in this country do not protect only citizens, they protect also non-citizens. And those are the kind of things we need to put into application to receive those who are coming in our midst with open arms, to make them understand we value them and when we want to integrate them in our ranks so that they can become good, productive citizens in our society. Did I answer your question?
Hi. Your talk really kind of opened my eyes on these different types of citizenship. I tend to see things in the world in terms of wealth, power, and governance, and kind of the dysfunctions of governance around the world. And it seems to me that when we have these passport programs where we ask the wealthy people of other countries to come into the global north, that we're undermining the other countries in the world, in the global south or elsewhere, because we're kind of taking the people with wealth away, and that deprives other people of the benefits they may have from them investing their wealth in their local communities. Would you want to comment on that?
Well, definitely. I mean, there is a double standard when you look at migration, immigration, and acceptance of immigrants in Europe, in the United States, and Canada, etc. People with money can buy their citizenship, literally. In Canada, they can buy their citizenship, I think it's $500,000. In the United States, it was $500,000, they raised it to $800,000. If you buy a home in America, you are a foreigner with money for $800,000. It's considered an investment, and you can use that to get your citizenship. The problem is a double standard that we have. Like I said, that the Quality National Index that exists right now, that rates citizenships of people, saying that this citizenship has value X, this citizenship has value Y. You're talking about human beings, you know? It is not something that is intangible. This is something that's real. So therefore, you put people in a situation where they consider themselves, because they have wealth or because of other factors, they are better than, they are superior to. They can go anywhere they want to go. But when it comes to other individuals who don't have these wherewithals, who don't have these capacities, we say, we don't want you, we don't want you to come. And yet these people are motivated by the same ideas and the same notion of participating in this democracy. So the double standard is a problem that we face in this country. And that's why you see a great manifestation of transnational identity in this country. People are here, they are invested here, they have their lives here, but at the same time, they don't want to cut ties with the homeland from which they migrated, because they consider the homeland a better place for them to survive if it weren't for the social and economic situations in these countries. So we need to reconsider, and we need to propagate these things, because people don't know that people can buy U.S. citizenship, literally. Right? How fair is it? And then we have people on the border, we are crying, they are invading us. But people are coming, invading us and buying America everywhere, and they get their citizenship and nobody says anything about it. So those are the things that need, and that's where social media is very important as well, to circulate these concepts and these notions. Why is it Samoans who are born on territories controlled by the United States are not considered citizens? And if you look at the debates that took place at the beginning of the 20th century, when the Samoans they said, well, we are a territory of the United States, like the other territories. These people have citizenship, birth citizenship. How come we don't have birth citizenship? If you saw how they described the Samoans, they are apes, they are uncivilized, we don't want these people in our midst. You don't want these people in your midst, but why are you controlling their territory? And that has been going on for 123 years. How many Americans know that we control Samoa for 123 years? And these people, they have a passport. In the passport, the last page of the passport says, this person is not a citizen of the United States. That person is a national of the United States. That means that that person does not have the protection of the U.S. consulate, the U.S. embassy, wherever that person goes. That's unfair. And the Samoans have been petitioning the Congress to say, change that. Why is it people in Washington, D.C. don't have representation in Congress? And they express that in the license plate, taxation without representation. Right here in Washington, D.C., they say, no, you can't have representation in the Congress. Why? These are citizens of the United States. So we have those double standards when it comes to citizenship that put people in a very awkward and very difficult situation. But if you are wealthy, if you come from certain societies, like the Quality National Index indicates it, you can go anywhere you want. And the funny thing that exists when you look at the studies of migration, we don't even call Americans who go live in foreign countries immigrants. We don't even call them immigrants. We call them expatriates. It is very interesting because words matter. We never call, if you're an American decide to relocate in Mexico, we don't call that person an American immigrant. This is an American expatriate. What does that mean? Why is it we have those double take when it comes to other people from the global south compared to the global north?
Thank you, Professor Fouron. Let's give him another round of applause.